what are the things you will see to check ki, hey, do I need an in-house team or an agency setup is better?
What works best is it's a combination of both, where you hire going full-fledgedly to an agency will be a disaster.
What kind of processes would you set up initially or early on to ensure that this whole thing can scale?
So I believe in that, I don't give the word count thing to the writer. Only perspective is that don't stretch out a content just for the sake of increasing the word count. Basically, there are two things, Himanshu. One is again quality and versus quantity. So when you're talking about scaling a content, then
a lot of writers would also be very invested in understanding how does the whole AI thing play.
So a couple of months back, I have attended a Google Search Central event in Bangalore, and one person have asked similar question to Google Spock, right? That how do you differentiate, or how do you like take this AI generated content when it comes to ranking? So they have said two things.
Tell me one thing. When you deal with freelance writers, when compared to an agency, what are the extra additional things you might do? How good is, let's say, a surfer SEO score of a 90 or 100? Does it really help, or is it just high?
Don't do an over optimization just because to achieve those
I think
numbers.
over engineering won't help.
Yeah. So if you feel that the content is good from a user perspective, it's adding value, it's good from an SEO perspective, it's well optimized, then it's okay. Don't go after the score which is given by a tool.
What signs or what stage would you say ki, hey, this agency is not working for me? What are the few metrics that you would track to understand if certain content is working?
Metrics I would look after.
This is the second episode of SEO Unfiltered. Before we deep dive into today's topic, we want to thank you for all the support you have given us. I think we've received a lot of comments on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube, and I think the numbers speak from itself. So we're excited to continue this, but again, we'll need your support. So feel free to share your comments, suggestions, anything. If you want a particular guest or something, we can arrange for that, I feel. And I think today we wanted to discuss about content. I think SEO content is very integral part of, I think, the whole SEO thing, right? It's very important. And I think
we have a say, that people generally say that SEO is content is king. So
correct. I think over the years, still content role impact is still huge, because at the end people are consuming that, and it's dependent on a lot of things, right? It helps you convert people, rank. I think if you see overall ranking, content is still a very essential metric. Like the quality of content is very important, and today we wanted to discuss more around if there's any SEO person who is joining any company and he's looking to scale up content. So we wanted to be in their shoes and understand what's the approach he'll take. And in general, we'll be talking about B2C companies, because I think their content play a very important role, and you can also scale content much faster compared to a B2B setup. So Aditya, you've been in similar positions, and let's assume a person with, let's say, 5 years of experience joins a company, and let's say a company is in very early stage. There's certain SEO fundamentals done, but he wants to scale up content, right? So in today's day and age, you have two options. Either you hire a in-house team of writers as well as freelance writers, or you go into the agency route where you outsource your content to them, right? So help me understand, let's say if you are in his position or her position, what are the things you will see to check ki, hey, do I need an in-house team or an agency setup is better? I mean, there's so many factors like budget, the type of content, but let's assume you have everything at your disposal. what will be your plan of action?
Yeah, Himanshu. So basically, it totally depends on the number of content you want to produce, right? So what really we have experienced in past, that what works best is it's a combination of both, where you hire either one or a couple of folks in house, depending on the requirement of your content size, and then you outsource content to a freelancers as well or agency, right? So it totally depends on the volume you are dealing with. So what I have experienced so far, if you really want to generate a great quality content, then it's always good to have a dedicated person. It could be in-house, it could be a freelancer, or it could be dedicated resource in an agency, right? So that person who has worked in this industry or in this niche from, let's say, past 5 years or more than that, that person could share his or her personal experiences in the content, right? That will add a lot of value to the content as well as the users. So I feel a combination of both would really help and work in a for example, let's say I have to produce 50 pages in a month, right? It could be blog, it could be a couple of landing pages. Now what my approach would be, I would prefer hiring one senior content person in-house who can do an editorial role for me, right? If required, one junior person under him or her, and we'll go with a couple of freelancers, right? 2 or 3 freelancers who are working who have experience of working in this particular niche from past, let's say 5-6 years, right? And they have also published a couple of articles on their name. That will be an added advantage, because it will also help me to use the boost eat signals, right? That Google is also giving a lot of value to that, those signals.
The author.
Yeah, so EAT, what we call it right now. So I guess those things, those kind of setup have worked for me and worked for other folks as well in past. Going full-fledgedly to an agency will be a disaster. Okay. Right, when you don't have any person in-house to check.
What do you mean going full-fledgedly? Meaning outsourcing, let's say 80% of your content, or what do you mean with that?
I have worked with the companies in past where when I have joined there and I got to know that no one from an internal team looks after the content. The content itself is 100% outsourced to an agency. Okay. The agency will do the keyword research. Agency every month, in the beginning of month, agency will just share a couple of topics as well as keywords. These are the shortlisted keywords and topics we have suggested. One person will just approve the keyword or a topic, and then they'll just go ahead, write the content and publish it. No one check the quality of the content, no one check the authority of the content, and no one even check the basic SEO things like if they are doing a proper internal linking, the H1 H2 optimization or not, right?
So in this case the agency is more like an SEO content agency, like, because usually either there are writing agencies, content agencies, which their job is to produce content, right? They don't do a lot of SEO, etc. I mean, they do optimize it, but it's at a very certain level, right? And then the second aspect is, as you mentioning, like SEO content agencies who will do everything in and out, right? They'll find keywords, they'll write. So obviously that's not a right approach, as you mentioned. So you're telling ki straight away we shouldn't go to an agency, right, and outsource everything. I think you have mentioned, like, let's first hire a bunch of people you mentioned a senior content editor, a junior writer, and then start with let's a freelance setup. I think because freelance setup is also not too much commitment also, right? Because agencies, I think there are
you have to give a certain commitment, that number of words or number of pieces.
Yeah, maybe it's a 3 months engagement, and let's say a freelance writer is still a freelance writer, right? You can tell him or her ki bhai, on the next day you don't want to work with them, right? I mean, the commitment is very low. In agencies, I think the upfront cost, everything is also
but then there is a cost associated to both the scenarios.
Okay.
when we work with freelancer, we do have a flexibility, how much work we want to assign them.
Correct.
But the problem we face usually is a deadline, right? A lot of time they lack to deliver the content on the time.
Okay.
Whereas agencies do a lot best in that front. Whenever agency have committed any timeline, they try to deliver that. If not 100%, then at least 80 to 90% I have received so far.
Okay.
But yeah, the challenges with the freelancers is totally different.
Mm-hmm. So coming back to that situation, so one thing is clear, that you shouldn't go right away to an agency and tell them ki, hey, these are my content requirements and you need to fulfill them. I mean, that's a very wrong way to do it. So I think the initial setup, I think one thing is, irrespective of if you want to double down on agency or not, you should hire an internal team, have a content editor, a writer who kind of manages it. Maybe start with a couple of freelancers, because that's lower commitment, and then understand how it's turning out for you, and then eventually go to the agency route. Now help me understand like the whole idea is to scale content, right? Now like as you mentioned, if the agency does everything, it's a problem, right? So let's say you as a SEO manager and the whole team, what kind of conversations or what kind of processes or what kind of things should that person who is kind of leading the whole team needs to take, at least early on, because there are a lot of things that he'll need to do early on, right? Like understand the niche, what kind of content it is it informational content? Because if there's very technical content, people might not be able to write it, right? You might need to look at internal teams. So help me understand, I mean, see, onboarding a senior editor or a junior writer and etc., it will be very, very seamless because they are in the setup, etc. Like freelancers, and you mentioned was experience. So in my experience, or in what I have seen is, see, all freelance writers commit to everything, right, these days. Again, you need to do a very, very hunt down somebody who's has written, has published work in your space. How important is that? And what kind of processes would you set up initially or early on to ensure that this whole thing can scale? If you want the whole, if you create process, everything, I think that will be applicable to agencies as well. They'll also benefit from it. So how do you approach this?
So first thing is to train your internal SEO or a content team.
Okay.
Right. Start with creating a basic SOP / checklist, where we mention that what all needs to be followed while auditing a content or while writing a content, right?
Okay.
For example, if I'm giving a checklist to a writer, what I would tell them, that if you have to optimizing for a certain keyword, make sure that the keyword is sprinkled throughout the content, and it's not only in the first half or a second half of the content, right? Right. Then better use LSIs and relevant other keywords as well. Don't just try to forcefully enter the keyword, right? Make sure to interlink our pages, whatever you feel right information we have available on our own website. Okay. Right. And then a lot of different things when it comes to editing part, right? When a person is doing the QC for the content, the checklist would be different. Whether I would ask a person to look after the quality of content, read the content and feel, when you are reading it, are you getting any information out of it or not? Useful information from a user perspective, right? For example, if I have written an article around how to buy a house in Bangalore, then is it really helping out as a buyer to me or to you? The content, right? Or it's just a generic terms. And also the checklist and the SOP will be an initial process for me that I'll be detailing out in a brief. Then second step would be training my team to do the basic thing, the content outlining part, So what we have seen, if you want to really scale, then you have to train your content team with respect to the basic keyword research, finalizing the topic, title, and the content outlining, right? And when you talk about finalizing the topic, which means that you have to also understand the intent of the keyword.
Okay.
Sometime there could be a keyword, for example, let's say best SaaS software online,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And then you have to understand the intent also, which means that when you search this keyword on Google, what kind of results are coming out? Is it listicle? Is it something you just have to mention what is best SaaS software online, or what is best SaaS software, or you have to mention different types of SaaS software, or what is it? So teaching them all these things will be really helpful if you want to scale. So, and the third step would be that doing a QC from our side as a SEO team, for the initial couple of contents, to understand how quickly or how much they have learned so far, and telling them their mistakes or whatever is input from our side, and then scale it from there. Once we feel that okay, the quality is up to the mark, and from an content perspective as well as from SEO perspective, then it's good to go, and then we're ready to scale. And then when they have the knowledge and understanding of the type of content which we require, they can also get it done from freelancers, right? Because they will be the person, mainly your content team will be managing your freelancers, right? So that's the approach what we try to follow.
Fair point. But let me one thing you clearly mentioned was that there's initial bit of training with your in-house team, and once they are equipped, once they understand things, it's better that they eventually pass it on to the freelancers and they understand better, right? The one thing is clear that they'll need a checklist of sorts, right? You will create certain checklist, even the content editorially they need some checklist to understand hey, is this on brand guidelines, etc., right? Now tell me, first of all, what kind of content would you outsource to a freelancer? Because I'm assuming your internal content team will be equipped to write anything, because they'll know more about your business, etc., right? I mean, I'm assuming these freelancers also work on different projects, so they might not know well enough, and most freelancers, they start off quickly, and I mean these whole thing is majorly skipped. So two things: what kind of content would you outsource to freelancers? First, A. B is what kind of things or information do you want to share to the freelancers? Because I'm assuming your content editor or the junior writer would write like a content outline. He'll do the initial bit of keyword research. Either the keywords will come from you, or he or she will do their own keyword research, and then also understand the intent. I think very good point. I think intent is often missed. I think oftentimes we misunderstand keywords, or sometimes we assume that this keyword needs this certain type of content. I think writing that content, again, if the intent is mismatched, then there is no way you will rank for that keyword, right? So help me understand what kind of content pieces would you outsource to them, and what kind of information would a content editor or a writer would share to the freelancer to ensure that the final output is as close to what you expect?
So I would always keep how with our internal team, and I'll always feel free to outsource what. Okay. So sometime why as well.
Okay.
Because what will be universal, right? That won't change. So if I have to write, what is rummy, or
something like a definition,
right? So that will be generic. Correct. No one can give their personal touch in that particular thing, right? So I'll always assign those kind of articles or content pieces to freelancers. At some extent, even why can be similar, right? For example, why buy a house in Bangalore? That will remain same, right? Because you'll get yearly rental
I mean, for a period of time, it will remain same.
A couple of things you can definitely add on, which can be added once we receive the article and we are doing an editorial QC on that, right? But I will always keep how with an internal team, because that's where all the personal experience comes into the picture, right? Because how can be totally different. For example, how to travel to Japan, right? Now Japan, a lot of people would travel to Japan, right? Or let's say any country like Thailand, right? And then the how will be totally different. Someone could have traveled by road, someone could have used flight, someone could have traveled different itinerary altogether. Everyone would have their own different perspective and thing, right? So how can be totally different about any industry, any topic. So that's where I feel I would be defining it. Listicles can be also given to freelancers if it's not very much thing, very much detail, something which you really want to edit and do it internally. What else? Maybe product related articles can be done internally where we are writing or we want to integrate our product.
Let's say an update, or let's say you
those
added
things,
some feature, or
only we as a team
you launch something.
Yeah,
correct.
so those things would be we'll be doing it. What was the second question?
Second part was like, what kind of information would your in-house writing team or editorial team give to the freelancer in order to ensure that the content is as close to what you've been expecting?
So there, the outline thing comes into the picture, right?
Okay.
When we create a proper outline, we do all the headings, subheadings, everything in the right. So writer,
I'm assuming before the outline, if outline is being created, so the writer is also responsible, like your in-house team is also responsible for finding that keyword.
Yes,
and understanding the intent, because I think according to the intent your outline will be created.
Initially what we do is basically either the outline is created by us or a content team, but it go in sync, right? Because if it's created by the content team, it will be reviewed by the SEO team, whether it's matching the intent or fulfill the user intent, right? So we'll just look after those things initially. The content outline thing really helps us, and it gives a direction to the writer also, that what all needs to be written and in what flow, right? So outline really helps. Second thing we do is we also share a couple of reference link with the writer, but we do share a bunch of links so that in one of the case what happened that we shared a reference link and it was the exact replica of a reference. So again, the whole idea is that we are sharing a reference link for you to read more about this if you don't know a lot about this topic. But the idea is that the content should be very different from what is given in the reference article, right? So you read a lot of things, then you write what you feel about it after reading it, right? After knowing about that particular topic. So that's the whole agenda. So reference link and the outline is what we give, and the SOPs will be always shared with the writers, that what all you have to do from an SEO checklist perspective.
And what kind of parameters would you share? Would you share word count, or would you share something like, hey, this subheading needs this number of paragraphs or something like that, or do you think you give it to the writer itself, or how do you do that?
So I believe in that I don't give the word count thing to the writer. Only perspective is that don't stretch out a content just for the sake of increasing the word count. Write the information which is required in the article or a content piece, and make sure that it suffices all the information, right? So don't write less or don't write more. So if you feel that the whole content can be covered in 1,000 words, it's good to go. It's fulfilling the intent, it's fulfilling the user queries, right? It's giving the right answer to the user with a proper example and everything. It's good. Giving word count for a certain paragraph is, I don't know, I haven't done it ever, and I don't think that it is good as well. But yeah, one of the couple of things which we do is that we try to tell them that write as much bullet points as you can, right? Write short
readability.
Yeah, to increase the readability, that write short paragraph, and make, if possible, add some tables, comparisons or anything, or try to write a lot of data and numbers in your content while writing it, so that it gives credibility to the content, right? Don't just write a generic content. So again, the example could be that if you're writing about why buy a house in Bangalore, and you're writing something related to the rental yield, that Bangalore gives a very good rental yield. So instead of writing that very good rental yield, you can mention that these are the places which has given this percentage rental yield in last 5 years, and the data is publicly available if you do a little bit of research. So when you add these numbers, the credibility increase a lot for your content, right? So always good to add as much numbers as you can, pictures, videos in your content. Yeah.
Cool. So you talked about how the content needs to be different. Now I think this is a very large problem across the whole industry also. I mean, because we have so many tools, or because our popular conception is ki hey, we as a writer scan the first 10 blogs for a certain keyword, and then most of our content is kind of a replica, like either it's a 80% replica or a 70% replica. Mostly freelancers what I have worked with or seen is they make almost like a 90% replica, because for them information is very very limited, right? I mean, depends on the topic as well, but your approach for a certain topic might be very very different if you write from your personal experience, your personal viewpoints, or something else, right? Now I mean, this is a very large problem at hand, and a lot of tools again will influence you to do this, and we'll discuss about how you can make the whole thing simpler. I think once we cover all the tools, etc., and we speak about how do we decrease the processes, improve timelines, how do you fasten up everything, the whole cycle. But what are your 2-3 things would you suggest your in-house team, or let's say a freelancer or something, to ensure that you're not creating another replica? Because then again ranking would be difficult. Or do you think an alternate approach is ki hey, let's publish these 50 articles, see what's ranking, and then you come back to the article again? What according to you is a better approach there? Because here we're talking about content at scale, right? And first of all, those important pieces where you feel ki there's a good angle or it's a little difficult to rank for or something, would you give it to the writer?
Basically, there are two things, Himanshu. One is again quality and versus quantity. So when you're talking about scaling a content, then it's about quantity, right? And whenever you're working with the quantity, it's very hard and difficult to maintain the quality, right?
That's true.
So in that case, I would say that try to follow the basic SOP. Do as much as you can to write a good quality content, and then scale it. Then based on the performance, we'll come back and look into the content and re-optimize it again. But the generic 2-3 things which I tell to the writer is that do a content gap analysis. Try to read that content and think from a user perspective that what is this 1 or 2 things which you feel is missing and could have been added, or as in it could be an added bonus for the customer, right? So I'll share one example. When we were writing the project or a society description, it used to be same, that there are certain amenities which will be there in the.
This is for a landing page?
No, yeah, it's for the landing kind of a landing page that there will be a certain amenities, and this is the location advantage and so on. So what we have done is that we try to write a unique feature about every project, and then write it in a such a way so that user can feel that amenities or any features about that particular society while reading it. Right, that person can imagine that he's really swimming in a very large swimming pool, or
so a little bit of storytelling,
kind of, right? So then you have to tell your story in a different way, right? When you can't do a lot of things change from a content perspective, because the definition and the story thing will always remain same. Right, because I can't change amenities for the society, but I can change my way of write about the society, right? So those are the things. Then gap is really helpful. What else? I would say a gap is the one thing which I tell that and try not to restrict yourself, right, reading only 1 or 2 articles which are ranking on top. Try to read all the 10 or maybe couple of articles from second page as well, and see what is exactly they are writing about. And then you have to also look at your exact competitors, right? Then there could be couple of websites which are ranking just because of the authority they own in that particular niche, and their content might not be that great, but it's ranking because of the authority they own. Then you have to skip and discard those pieces. You have to find the right competitor who is like as similar as your website or your company, and then the type of content they have generated versus the type of content you want to generate, right? So, and then merge a couple of content pieces like that on a note, make a note of all the headings they are covering, and then while reading it out, you'll understand, what are the missing gaps, and then try to fill it out.
Yeah, I think very good point you mentioned is, see, usually what happens is uh, either brands are ranking because of their authority, or because they were the first persons to write all that article, right? And oftentimes I think whoever is ranking on the top 3, I think they don't refresh their content that often. I mean, there are very few companies who do that, and because you're writing the same thing about as the top 3, you're actually replicating the same content. So I think I feel me as a writer, I think my approach would be ki, hey, it's a good, I mean, the second page is a good place to start. I'll also feel ki, hey, is that content outdated, like the first few ranking articles. If they're outdated, I'll understand ki, hey, what are the things that has happened, speak
Right.
to real users. I think from if I see from a B2B setup, I feel ki there's so much you can do. You can talk to your product team, you can talk to your team internally, understand things, right? And also if I'm coming from a very B2C perspective, I could talk to actual customers, or actual read their commentary on, let's say Google Play Store reviews, or let's say on a public forum, like let's say a YouTube video or something, right? Try to understand what are the challenges they are facing, etc. So let's say if I want to write something about ki, hey, what's the best place to find rented apartments, for example. If I don't have any personal experience, I'll probably look at other people, what are they saying, etc. I mean, see, I also understand that freelance writers are not paid enough to actually do a lot of these research, but I feel ki maybe when picking up these topics, or before, if there's some research which can help you across all these articles, I think you should do that. And yeah, I mean, the idea should be to make something truly valuable. As you mentioned, ki word count is not the first priority here. It's about how do you convince people, or match the whole intent and the value you're providing, right? So I think that will be definitely helpful. Now coming to, I think, a huge thing that has happened, and I think a lot of writers would also be very invested in understanding how does the whole AI thing play. We've seen a lot of websites just ranking on AI content. Again, Google is also going against them, and a lot of stories of rising, like a lot of growth stories which we've seen in the industry, and then a lot of failures as well, right? Now, as writers, as a writer myself, and somebody who works with a lot of freelance writers, these writers are using ChatGPT, right? It's very clear that that's their way of producing content quickly. You as a SEO manager, or you as somebody who kind of reviews all the content, or let's say you manage your content team, how do you see the whole Gen AI play? Right, I think we discussed this in our last conversation. We talked briefly about it. Ki, how do you use it in your workflow? And we had some good suggestions as well here. But when we talk about AI content in general, what do you think? Where is it going? And a secondary risk is putting out AI content and plagiarized content in general, right? So I think earlier plagiarism was only about, hey, this content has been copied from this A website or B website, which you could easily do through tools, through Grammarly as well. But AI content also has certain other platforms. But how do you see the whole game, and how do you prevent yourself? Like, at what extent would you go, and at what extent you will be like, hey, this is not something we should go in this territory, or something like that, right? So how do you see the whole thing?
So a couple of months back, I have attended a Google Search Central event in Bangalore, and one person have asked similar question to a Google Spock, right? That how do you differentiate, or how do you like take this AI generated content when it comes to ranking. So they have said two things. One is that we don't differentiate between AI and manual written content.
Okay.
What matters for us is that the content should be updated, the content should be unique, and it should add value to the user, right? But at the same time, they have also mentioned that the content which is generated by AI is nothing but the pieces the AI has picked from multiple websites which already exist. So it is not unique again, right? Because it just rephrased the existing content. So they haven't answered this question directly, but what I have understood out of it is that the content which is generated by AI or ChatGPT is not unique. It's just a rephrased content which AI has,
because I think it's trained from all these websites,
right?
And I'm assuming that if it's trained,
so
it's going across your top 20 articles.
Yeah, so if it's not unique, then it's not adding value to the user, and Google won't reward that content as well, right? So I feel that whenever you write manually, like a writer is writing the content and adding their personal touch in that will be always helpful. In some cases, AI content might be helpful. For example, writing the definitions or product descriptions, right? The general content which is like ChatGPT will be definitely helpful to do your research part when you want to find out some stats, facts while writing a content piece, right? Or maybe like changing your tonality of the content which you have written, or to help you and support you. It's not what I feel, it's not something which you should heavily rely on to produce 100% of your content, but it can definitely act as a supporting hand to a writer or a SEO team to do a lot of like support from a machine. You can generate titles, you can ask for related keywords, you can outline, right? Then a couple of definitions, facts, numbers, stats, right? They can also it can also help you to create a couple of tables, beautiful tables out of your content or out of any other content which you give as a reference to the machine. So that's what I feel. But manually written content will be always good. You have to see what kind of content really works in your industry. I have heard couple of cases recently after the Google update came that the sites which were producing a lot of content using AI has like seen a losses with respect to ranking and traffic, and they are not getting rewarded anymore. And I guess slowly and gradually Google will be very very strict about all these things, and they will be also able to understand the content which is created by a machine versus a man, right? So writing content manually will be always helpful. Like when I write, like when I read as a reader any content, right? I would definitely see that a content written by a person will be helpful, because you can see that while reading it, you can feel that personal touch coming out of a content. So that's what I feel about this.
Are there any tools do you use to check?
There are a lot of tools available in the market to check AI thing, but none of the tool is giving 100% result right now. We had this kind of charts in the SEO community as well, but so far I haven't got any tool which is giving 100% result. A lot of tools have been tried so far. So if any tool which is giving 100% result, let me know also. Even I'm not sure about it, but as far as my knowledge, there is no tool available right now which can give you a right result, whether the content is AI written or not.
Yeah, I think my 2 cents here would be like, as you mentioned correctly, there's no tool which will give you 100%, which means that either because I was working with a freelance writer, and what he mentioned was ki, hey, even the content he's written himself is being shown as AI content. So I think it's a very gray area for as of now, right? So you might get AI content which is recognized as original content, or original content recognized as AI content.
Right.
It's very difficult because I don't know how it works and how much is there. I think what I would do is see something like a chat GPT or a Claude or a Gemini is very, very useful, as you mentioned, about understanding intent, understanding the topic, writing an outline, understanding what to write, right? So as long as you gain all the information and write it yourself, you should be good to go. But I think once you go into copy pasting stuff, I think that's where the problem is. And we'll also have to understand ki hey, something like a chat GPT or the free version is like, it's what, like a year or 2 years old, the kind of information on data set it has. So it's not giving you the recent information as well, right? So it's very important you do your own research, use it as your partner in crime in understanding ki hey, ki this is what the topic wants from you, these are the certain things, or broadly for your research. I think it's helpful. You get all the information at one place. And as you mentioned, that write the content yourself, add your own personal flavor to it, add your personal edge to it, because that will help you go higher and get results, right? And again, I think, yeah, coming to the tools, I think it's very, very now I think we've spoken about AI content and what's like our stance at it, like how do you want to use it, etc., right? If you have something which is more repeatable, or something where you could put in your something like so let's say if you're writing a meta description for, let's say, your society pages, so you can do an algorithm, or you can have a prompt written ki hey, these are the things, and you feed some of your previous like originally written meta description, and then create something to ensure. I think because when I talk about society pages, I think there are like lakhs of societies, right, in India alone. So that will be helpful. So anything which is repeatable, anything which needs a lot of you can basically program it, you should do it. I think one thing helped me understand the whole programmatic bit, right? There's a lot of pages or that people like publish at scale, right? So let's say something like a Red Bus, right? So Red Bus has, let's say, 15, let's say they work with 20 cities, for example. Now, so 20 cities and the connectivity, all these cities are connected, let's assume that. So there are what, like, at least if you see the combination, I think there is what, more than 400 pages, like easily, because 20 cities, every city has a page. In that case, how do you approach content?
What I feel personally, that Google understand all the niches,
okay,
right, and the type of content that needs to be generated in that particular niche, right? So again, like if we take example of e-commerce, right, the product description you write, every site will be writing something similar kind of a product description, but they all rank. Same thing happens here as well when we try to write a templatized content where we will be using multiple templates with a lot of variables in it, and then the variables will be filled when we have to generate content on scale, like the pages will be lakhs or thousands, right? And then what we do is, after launching it, once we start getting the response and result, we cherry pick couple of pages where we feel that that they should be performing but they're not performing. We try out some experiments over there, or the pages which are performing, which we want that let's say they are already ranking in bottom 10 and we want to push it above, right, because they have a good performance or they have a good volume. We would definitely go and manually write the content. So if you have to launch pages in thousands and lakhs, it's difficult to write and launch everything all together. So we do a programmatic content approach over there, where we create a set of templates with a lot of variables in it, and then we launch the content with the help of machine, and we see the results coming in, but it can be only done in a specific niches where Google has approved this kind of contents in past, and people have seen results and it's still working out, right? If you say that you want to do this thing in a medical niche or a finance niche, I would say it might not work.
Correct.
right? So it might work in real estate, it might work in travel industry, right? Or any other industry like maybe food, not sure about food as well, but fashion, e-commerce. There it might work, but yeah, that's how it is.
Cool. I think so. We've understood like how do you approach content, what kind of SOPs you want to do. We've spoken about AI content. Again, we spoke about programmatic content, or where should you use AI in general. Anything repeatable, programmable, you should use it. It helps you save a lot of time. It gives you consistency as well. Now coming to tools, and I think one of the very popular tool nowadays is your tools like Surfer, right? Where you put in a keyword and you get everything, right? You get your outline, you get your instructions. Ki, hey, your keyword should be. I think it's over engineering, but I feel in some cases, like for example, in cases of freelancers, also. I think it's very useful because it for them it's like these are set of instructions, and because the tool itself does a lot of research, it's trained and it analyzes a lot of pages. You can select competitors, deselect competitors. It will help you kind of. It makes the job more easier, and then you can ensure. But how good is, let's say, a Surfer SEO score of a 90 or 100? Does it really help, or is it just hype?
So it's been a couple of years I have used Surfer. We are not using in our current company, and but I have used this tool in past. It was really helpful. The score which is giving was helpful, which we have seen in past. One thing which we have done is that customizing the Surfer link. When you mention a keyword and it creates an outline, you sometimes it just select a random websites as well, which are not the exact competitor. I mentioned it earlier, right? The sites which are ranking just because of tropical authority they own that particular niche.
Correct.
So you go in settings, customize.
Otherwise, your whole outline will be skewed.
So customize your competitors, the which you want to do. Right, go in the NLP section, make sure that all the NLP words are mentioned over there. Check all the LSIs it's suggesting. Sometime it might be suggesting some brand names, the computer brand names, which you might not be able to enter it, right?
True.
It might not help you to move your score needle. So you need to do a lot of customizations while creating a Surfer link. But if you create it well and you write the content well by following all the NLP terms which it gives, then I have seen that the tool was helpful and the content which was created and optimized at Surfer link was giving results.
So, tell me one thing. If there's a content which has an 85 score and there's a content which has a 100 score, how much of a difference is that? Like, I've seen a lot of people, or I mean, you as a SEO manager, you might be obsessed with something like, hey, I want a 95 score or a 90 score. And most times it's possible, but sometimes it's about, I have used Surfer SEO myself. So sometimes I need to break the flow, or I need to write a subheading in a way just to make the score higher. So how do you see that? For you, let's say 85 score is okay, or do you obsess of making it 90 or 100?
So again, I would say that don't go with the score.
Okay.
Same thing. People, when they are looking at Yoast score long back, that Yoast is giving that score, right? So again, these are the vanity metrics. You just make sure as a SEO person,
like have a benchmark, and then it's okay. If it's higher,
so
but
if your NLP terms are covered up, if your important terms, which the top terms, covered up, it's good to go. Okay. Number is not something which I would ever follow. Over. Yeah. Tweaking a heading to fit in a keyword, can be done if it's not looking like forcefully done, right? If you can do it up naturally, it's good to add it. Right, optimizing heading is a very important part of a content optimization when you're doing from an on-page perspective. Like for example, if it's suggesting to enter a keyword for 24 times and you have done it 20 times, right? It's okay. Not forcefully try to complete that or achieve that number. So that's what I feel. There is no difference between 85 and 100. uh, don't do an over optimization just because to achieve
Yeah,
those
I think
numbers.
over engineering won't help.
Yeah. So if you feel that the content is good from a user perspective, it's adding value, it's good from an SEO perspective, it's well optimized, then it's okay. Don't go after the score which is given by a tool.
Any other tool which you think will help in this whole process? I mean, there are obviously these AI tools will definitely help improve processes, help your writers. I think a tool like Ahrefs or a SEMrush will help you in understanding keyword, their intent, their difficulty, who are ranking, etc. Right? I think now. I think Ahrefs also gives you the whole trend where if number of words are added, or it'll give you a word count also. So that's a good thing. So Aditya, we've spoken about the whole content process, right from ideation phase, reviewing, how do you tackle with tools, how do you improve workflows, etc. And we've discussed fair bit. But tell me one thing. When you deal with freelance writers, when compared to an agency, what are the extra additional things you might do? I mean, if you can quickly take us through what do you see when onboarding them, right? And how do you deal with them? Do you deal with them differently? I'm sure that you mentioned once in our conversation that like freelance writers are not very true to their timelines, which can be a problem because if you're planning to publish content at scale, you need content at regular intervals, right? So what are the few things you might to change? I think a lot will be very similar, but then what's your this thing?
So whenever we talk with the freelancer, it's very straightforward conversation that this is our requirement, this is our SOP, and these are the reference link and the guidelines, and do let us know if you need anything else from our end. And it's a face to face or a easy communication with the freelancer. But when it comes to an agency, most of the time you'll be assigned with a SPOC, right? And you will be just talking to the POC assigned to you. That person might not be the writer who will be working on a content page.
Correct. I mean, you don't have a direct communication with
right.
the
So then in that case it becomes sometimes it becomes difficult because that person will be passing on the information which you will be sharing on, right? And then sometimes it's just
there's
unnecessary to and fro, right? Communication gap will be definitely there, and then that's a different issue altogether.
Okay.
Right.
How do you solve this? Is there any way to tackle this?
I feel that if agencies can, specifically assign a dedicated writer to a particular project or to a particular company or maybe a set of companies if the requirement is very less, then it will be helpful, right? And if the same writer is working on a project for a longer period, gradually they also understand the industry and the niches. And I would say don't, assign a lot of different content, a lot of requirement to a single writer. It's good to give them a space to think and read, right? Maybe 1, 2 or at max 3 clients would be good, right? And it's good if they are all from a same industry, if that's possible, so that or you try to optimize with respect to the background the writers are coming from. If you have let's say 5 writers, one from finance background, one from gaming, one from real estate and finance, fashion, right, so on, then based on the client requirement, if you assign the person who have a good knowledge of that particular field, that would be helpful because they can sell your product, they can sell your services because they know in and out of that particular niche. So when that particular person will be talking to a client, right, the client can relate more. And
what are the other things?
Other things I would say, editorial aspects which every agency should focus more. Almost every time it happened that the content piece will go back for silly mistakes, right? So giving a proper QC will be helpful. And what happens usually that initial days, when you're working,
when you're starting out,
they'll do a good copies, but slowly and gradually when you start scaling up, you'll see those things happening. Right? They'll remove the QC part. They will rely heavily on the writer, that the writer is written, and they'll just straightforward, give you that content. So improving on that aspect.
So they slack, kind of.
Yeah. And I would say the costing part also needs to be improved as industry practice, right? So this is also another problem, because when you work with an agency, the writers get paid very less as compared to when they work as a freelancer.
Like directly with the company.
Right? Because the agency has to make money, and they also have their own expenses, right?
Yeah.
So I feel that we all still have that mindset of working with a 40 paisa, 50 paisa or 60 paisa per word scheme. I don't have a right solution right now, but I feel maybe this per word paisa thing can be replaced with the content that you have to write on topic wise. Let's say this is a fixed cost on every topic you write. Now it could be, obviously there could be a range that the content pace might be as low as 500 word, or it might go as up as 2000, 1500 or 3000 word, depending on the industry or niche you work on. But if you assign or if you deal in a topic type of thing, that might be helpful, because then the writer won't be pressurized to write certain words, right, just to make more money, because they know that I'll get paid
irrespective of the word count.
Right.
That's not in his or her back of the mind.
Right. But it can backfire also, because sometime if writer is in a hurry and they feel that they have to deliver quickly, the article might.
But these are issues that the agency need to fix themselves, right? So tell me one thing: at what stage what signs or what stage would you say ki, hey, this agency is not working for me? Or at what stage would you say this agency is working for me? What are the things you would see and tell?
Okay. So what we can do basically, and what I have done earlier as well, we do a pilot runs.
Okay.
Right. So
and how long is this pilot run?
So it depends. It depends on the requirement. It could be for a month. It could be for 3 months as well, depending on the requirement and the project you are working on.
Correct.
Right?
Like the scale of the project.
Yeah. So what I try to do is basically I try to not share the whole requirement or the whole project requirement in the very beginning. Right. And
so don't show them the full picture.
Right. So we give the work in bits and pieces. We try it out. We keep on.
Do you work with multiple agencies at that time just to check, or focus on one?
Yeah, we worked on multiple agencies as well to try out and see which agency is working out.
Makes sense.
So we do this maybe sometime in 2 different categories and see, or maybe in the same category, if you have a requirement of 20 content, we take 10 content from one agency, 10 content from other agency, and see it out, right? So, and you will get to know eventually when you have 50 content pieces from one agency and 50 content pieces from different agency, and you see how your category is performing, right? At least if you have written topic from a same search volume perspective or same kind of a same search competition perspective, then you will get an idea that what is working for you, what is not working for you. So this is one of the thing which I have done earlier, that we do a A/B testing kind of a thing where we work with multiple agencies and see what is working. When we see that a lot of editorial mistakes are coming up, we get an idea, it's a red flag that agency is not working out, or agency is not taking our project as very serious client or something. Then we just right away stop working. And when you talk about a green flag, I have worked within an agency where the team was very much cheered up to work with involved. They were giving a lot of insights. They also gave us good insights on our old content as well. That these are the things.
So going that extra mile in telling.
Yes. Yeah. But again, that agency was also on a very early aged. They were just starting off. New. So they were. I hope that they are still doing that kind of work. But it was really helpful for us. And those content, we haven't done a very scale work with them. But the content which they have provided, I guess around, they used to provide around 20-25 content pieces every month, and we were just working with them, and the content they have produced, they were giving good results to us. We were growing by more than 80-90% every month on month, though we were starting off with a website, hence the number are huge. But yeah, the content performance was very good for a new website where you have to build authority and all, right? So it was good.
Usually how many cycles are there, review cycles, like usually with a freelancer, or which is normal, like for a...
So initial times it will be more,
Okay.
so we'll,
like 3-4 times?
kind of 3-4 times,
Okay.
where one could be QC from an editorial person, and then one from a SEO side, right? And one we do in a very early stage when we do the QC to the outline, right? And after couple of content pieces, or maybe after couple of months, we reduce this timeline, this review process to 2 times. One even one will be only required, where the editorial person will just have a look and then we'll go ahead with the content.
Okay, so fair. I think we've discussed about the agency bit as well. Now, coming to the other aspect, how do you measure content success? Because whether it's an in-house team, whether you're working freelancers, whether it's an agency, how do you see, what are the few metrics that you would track to understand if certain content is working, or what metrics do you see and you decipher ki, hey, this content needs some rework, or let's say like how do you see all this, and what kind of tools you use to track this, and how do you come to this conclusion?
Right. So,
and what's the timeline do you see? Like how much time do you give it as well?
There is no straight answer to the timeline, Himanshu.
Okay.
It depends on the type of content which you have created.
What's the range like?
It could be as low as
Couple of
maybe
weeks?
2-3 days.
2-3 days, okay.
And it could be as long as maybe couple of months. 2, 3, 6 months, depending on the type of website you are working on,
The authority, yeah.
competition, and so on. Metrics I would look after is ranking, traffic, average page on time, bounce rate, right, from tracking perspective. And then it totally depends that type of content which you are working on. So if you are you have written a content from a transactional perspective, that this will give you conversions, and in that case my whole agenda would be that how much conversions I am getting with respect to selling my service, product, or anything, when I have written content just to support my pillar page, right? In that case,
then you will be concerned more about the pillar page
ranking and the performance, right? When I'm creating content to generate traffic, then I'd be looking from a traffic perspective that this was a search volume, this is what I'm getting right now, and what is my average ranking, and so on. The great tool would be Search Console. Search Console will give you a good idea about the content performance,
ranking.
Yeah, and it gives you also a lot of keywords on which you are getting impressions, but you might have not optimized your content for that.
So is it a good signal ki, hey, your intent is wrong, or your content might not be?
Yes. Search Console will give you a great idea about. Sometimes what happens that you were trying to target another keyword, but when you look at your Search Console data, you see different keywords altogether. Then you see that you have done a mistake and you are trying to map into different keyword, but you're ranking on different keywords.
But it does take some time to understand, right?
Yeah, it does take some time, but again, it totally depends on the industry you are working on, or the type of competition, right? From a writer's perspective, I would say the bounce rate and the average page on time. Average page on time would be a good metric to track when they see that if they have written an how-to kind of article or transactional intent article, that how much time people are spending usually on that particular content. So yeah, those are the couple of metrics.
Would like a tool like a Hotjar help? No?
Definitely, Hotjar or a Clarity would definitely help to understand how people are interacting on your landing page or your article, right? If you have placed a CTA, whether you have placed it in the right place or not, and what is a section where people are spending more time, because you can see even live videos, recorded videos as well, right? And the dead click section, you can also see that where people were trying to find out something, a meaning of something where you feel that a link could be helpful, so on. You can utilize the data a lot.
Okay, but let's say when you're doing it at scale, does the process change, or is it somebody who kind of goes and tracks everything? Like let's assume you have 200 published content in the last 6 months. What would you see? Would you sort it by ranking and then go do a deep dive, or at scale how do you do it? Like would you export something, or
yeah, so what we do is ideally we sort the data with search volume.
Okay.
The highest number of search volume, and then we filter it to the keywords ranking, right? Let's say I have sorted to the highest volume, and then the ranking of the, I'll filter out all the keywords or all the content pieces which are not ranking in top 10.
Okay.
To see that, okay, these are the good volume keywords, but they're still not ranking in top 10. Then why they're not ranking? Let me re-optimize them. Let me see what the reason why they're not working out, right? And then I would, once these things are done, I will come back and I'll see the bottom 5 results of my, again sorted with the search volume, that the keywords which are ranking in the bottom 5, and see how I can push them in top 5.
And when would you scrap out an article or when would you, what's a good timeline to see ki hey, this content might need refreshing? I think rank and drop, like drop in rankings is one place which we can look at, but what's a good timeline for that? And when would you say ki hey, let's remove these articles, or this is not working for us at all? Like what are the timelines for both things?
So removing article, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe if it was time associated article where the information was.
So let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say the intent has completely changed. Let's say in a year content has changed.
Yeah.
It's a landing page. So what do you do with the content? Would you redirect it, or how do you?
Yeah, so it totally depends. If it's a landing page and now if you see the intent has definitely changed to a listicle, one thing I would try initially, that first thing I would see that where I am ranking right now. Whether, for example, I was ranking in top 3, now I have been pushed to bottom 10, or if I have been pushed to a second page.
Okay.
Right. So in what stage the intent has been changed. So if I am still on top, maybe in first page, that means that Google is still trying to understand the intent. And I would.
So there's a mix of formats.
But if I see that all the results are coming off in top 10 are listicles, and all the landing pages have been pushed to second page, then my approach would be that I would create a listicle article, like link this page from it, and then see how it's performing well. If not, then the final approach might be to redirect that page as well, right? And refreshing might not work out because the URL will be different.
No, when do you pick certain articles ki hey, these need a revamp or a refresh?
That totally depends on intent, first thing.
Okay.
And the information available online.
Okay.
When I feel, for example, I have written an article on how to play Rummy, and now there are a new set of rules have been introduced, right? Then it makes sense to update an article. Or I feel that let's say the intent has been changed now, people are writing about listicle instead of a definition, then the content needs to be refreshed, right? Or any news have came into that picture, then the article or a content piece you can update definitely. So those kind of pages, when your ranking has dropped, ideally that shouldn't be a case if you are up to the date and you know that what's going on with the content. But if that's the case, then I would say then first you analyze the reason why the ranking has dropped, whether it's because of the intent, whether it's because of the competition has increased or the content is outdated and so on, and then try to analyze and let's see whether this is the only content which has been where you have seen the ranking drop, or a lot of content has been. Then analyze the result and then do it. But ideally you do it when you feel that.
Would you look at clusters and then take a decision?
Definitely. Again, the whole idea is to first understand the reason why the drop has happened, and if it has happened only to a certain page, category, or site wide, right? And then try to take a action that okay, this has only happened to a certain page. That means that my content was outdated or my content was not relevant now. Let me do a revamp over there. But it has happened site wide, then it's a different problem altogether. Or if it's happened within a category. So yeah, that's what it is.
How much of audits help in such scenarios? Like, would an HRS audit tell me ki, hey, links are missing or something? Like, how much of an audit play, or is it a little manual work?
I would say it's still a manual work. Auditing, whenever it comes to an SEO auditing, tools really help, but they just give you a very generic or a broader picture, which is very helpful for a very.
So your search console and your rank tracker is a good place to start, where you see ki nahi, there is some ranking drop or the ranking is not increasing, and then you flag these and then you do a research. So you need to be updated on that aspect.
Yeah.
So I think we've discussed fairly a lot about how the whole content work, agency, pros and cons. I think this will be very helpful for writers to also understand ki, hey, what's working, what should your approach be, how do you move ahead of the curve, right? And what are the best practices? And even for an SEO manager, you've given some good tips in order to them to form the team, etc. So yeah, I think this will be very, very useful. So folks, let us know what you think about the whole thing. What are your suggestions? What are your viewpoints? We'd love to understand what's your setup like at your company and how they're there. And let us know what you want to cover us next, so that we could do that. If you want some guests, or if you want to deep dive in a certain topic, let us know. We'd absolutely consider this thing and include it in the next one. So yeah, that's it for our second episode. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.